Welcome to class or week 7 of ethical and professional conduct in behavior analysis. Today we will finish the last 2 guidelines for responsible conduct for behavior analysts. I'm sure that some of you are taking great joy in the fact that we are finally finishing them. I know that some of these guidelines overlap quite a bit, and that is just the nature of these kinds of guidelines. And that's why they're called guidelines. To help with ethical behavior, they're covered in multiple areas. And in fact, the new compliance code that's coming out next year, one of the things it attempts to do is to consolidate some of the overlap in these guidelines in the next version. However, these guidelines are an ethical practice is incredibly important to BCAB, and therefore in the BCBA exam, these kinds of questions, that is, ethical questions around these guidelines, are emphasized quite a bit. Not so that you would say what the number is, but so that it's very important that you're familiar with these responsible conduct guidelines and how you would respond in common ethical dilemmas. All right, so today we'll talk about guidelines 9 and 10. 9 is the behavior analyst's ethical responsibility to society. So behavior analysts are interested in promoting the general welfare of society. That is another way that we could contribute to the survival of our field, is if we can use behavioral principles to improve society. Bailey and Birch give many, many examples of how we could help. The penal system is just a great example of that, but there are literally hundreds of other kinds of examples. And essentially, the BACB guide, this particular BACB guideline, prompts behavior analysts to promote the application of the principles of behavior. The final guideline has to do with research, and it covers the ethical considerations. It's probably one of the most complex guidelines of all 10, because there's so many aspects of research. But some of the highlights are, it talks about plans to ethical research would attempt to minimize the possibility that results will be misleading, consistent with guideline 1 in focusing that behavior analysts are seen as having integrity and being honest. This guideline also talks about the necessary conditions for informed consent, minimizing deception in research. Again, another way that society would be more positive with behavior analysts is if they don't perceive that we are deceiving people. The importance of the accuracy of research data. They even talk about animal research and the ethics of using animals as subjects, and even authorship and the ethics and guidelines around how do you choose, if you're doing research with multiple people, how do you choose which author is first and which one's second and which is third and which is last. All right, so this week, read chapters 14 and 15 of Bailey and Birch. Read guidelines 9 and 10 of the BACB Guidelines for Responsible Conduct for Behavior Analysts, And the assignment this week is, again, in the discussion forum. Remember, the first week I asked you to list a ethical dilemma that you encountered. So I'd like you to then take that ethical dilemma. If you want to change it, you can. But take that ethical dilemma, and now that you've reviewed all of the guidelines, tell me what the relevant guidelines are and how you resolved it. Or, now that you've read all of these and are now more familiar with the guidelines, maybe you didn't resolve it the way that you wish you did or you should have, and now tell me how you would resolve it given the fact that you now are familiar with the guidelines. Additionally, I want you to comment on how you would have addressed at least one other student's ethical dilemma that they mentioned, or comment on how they addressed that particular one. All right? And next week is week 8. And if you look at your syllabus, you'll see week 8 is spring break, and there are no assignments or no readings for this class. So we have the week off, which means we will start up again in week 9, which starts on Monday, March 23rd. But don't forget to get this assignment in by March 15th. All right, if you have any questions, you know how to get in touch with me. Have a good week off, and I will see you during the week of March 23rd. Bye.